Hello. In this module, I'm going to provide you with an overview of regulatory and pricing approaches to incentivize renewable electricity at multiple scales. By the end of this module, you should be able to do at least 3 things. First, analyze your objectives for implementing regulatory and pricing policies. Second, understand the strengths and weaknesses of options available. And third, understand the applicability of these options at different scales. First up, let's consider what you are trying to achieve. There is an important link between renewable electricity targets, wider policy objectives, and available resources. For example, the approaches for enabling energy access compared with those for adding renewables to a mature grid infrastructure are quite different, although there may be some common elements. Also, approaches change depending on the penetration of renewable electricity on grids, where broadly speaking, the more there is, the more you are dealing with the issues of integration. This module focuses on the different regulatory and pricing approaches to incentivize renewable electricity at different scales and circumstances. So, how can we drive the deployment of renewable electricity? There are numerous ways to do this. If the government owns all the firms in the electricity industry, it might simply tell them what to do. But if there are private sector companies involved, you need to give them reasons to act. If you have a renewable electricity target, one approach is to use quotas and obligations to cascade targets down the supply chain actors to generators, retailers, and consumers. A key component of these quotas and obligations is a framework to monitor and penalise non-compliance. If you want to rapidly increase the deployment of renewables, feed-in tariffs and feed-in premiums have been used to incentivize large-scale and smaller-scale renewable electricity projects in over 80 countries. They are effective because they provide a stable income to generators, which makes it easier to finance projects. The key for both is setting the tariff or premium level right and being able to adjust them as needed, but only for future schemes. When a country changes the price for existing schemes unexpectedly, it is likely to frighten off the investors it needs for future ones. For large-scale renewables, auctions are an increasingly popular mechanism in which the government competitively procures renewable electricity, with winning bids earning a power purchase agreement. They have been adopted in more than 70 countries now. The strength of auctions include their flexibility, their potential for real price discovery, and their ability to ensure greater certainty in price and quantity. As you can see, auctions have had a big impact on the prices of power from wind and from photovoltaics. Auctions also have some downsides. They have relatively high transaction costs, which may inhibit the ability of smaller companies to participate. They can also result in underbuilding and delays, for example, from bids being unrealistically optimistic. Net metering and billing policies support small-scale renewables for electricity prosumers. They credit the producer for the electricity added to the grid. In net metering, the prosumer banks excess electricity to offset future demand. In net billing, the producer is paid for electricity they inject into the grid. Both approaches increase the utilisation of local renewable electricity on the grid and thus reduce losses. However, they can cause issues with electricity system cost recovery and lead to cross-subsidisation between those who self-consume and those who do not. Finally, I want to talk briefly about energy access. Globally, 1 in 7 people do not have access to electricity. The UN Sustainable Development Goals include a goal to ensure universal access to affordable electricity by 2030. This will not be achieved solely through extending national grids. Decentralised solutions for electricity access are therefore a high priority development goal. I'm not going into detail here, as there are some excellent resources in the supplementary information. So this has been an overview of the regulatory and pricing policies to support delivery of renewable electricity at multiple scales. You can find more detail and case studies in the supplementary information, and you should also consider this in the context of supply chain issues and non-regulatory policies. A pro-renewables environment is a mix of both of these.